All right. Well, I'll officially call the meeting to order of the Salem High School Building Committee for Thursday, August 21st. First course of action is to vote to approve the meeting minutes from the July 15th meeting. Just need a motion.
And I just want to note, Nate, you probably didn't see it. We did not get the minutes out to everybody, so we're going to delay. We're going to delay that vote to the next meeting. So,
all right. Never mind. Okay. So
good thought, though.
No worries. We can go right into the milestone schedule review and next steps.
Okay. And actually, there's a lot to talk about here. So let's launch right in. So I'm going to do milestone schedule review. Then we have two presentations tonight on public labor agreements and a discussion and a vote. Brooke and her team have done a lot of work over the summer. I hope everybody's had a great summer. So we'll get a design update, an update on the CM selection process, an update from the finance working group, public comment. And the meeting may run a little bit longer than our regular 2 hours. So next slide. So we're going to skip that. And here we go. Okay, so I was looking at this yesterday when I was putting it together, and I want to just say what is very noticeable about this diagram, which you are all familiar with, is that we are essentially at the halfway point here. The feasibility process, the PDP and the PSR pieces are behind us. The architects have been working since we last met in June on schematic design, and they're, a month, almost 2 months into what's about a 6-month process. So next slide. I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about this in more detail, and I did send out the link about 10 minutes ago, so if it's easier for you to see it on your screen, please take a look. So the first thing I want to comment on is the top line, which is the building committee meetings that we have scheduled. So we have, tonight's obviously the 21st. We have a meeting scheduled. We had a meeting scheduled on the 18th of September, but we're going to bump that to the 25th because we discovered when we looked at all the dates for back to school nights that the high school's back to school night is also the 18th. And it's also a problematic night for a couple of other reasons. So we're going to reschedule that. Right now you will have a meeting in your calendar on the 18th, and that's going to move till the 25th. So then we have an October meeting on October 16th, which is in your calendar. We're going to add a meeting on November 6th, which is the first week of November. We have a meeting scheduled on the 20th, and then we're tinkering with the meetings in December. I believe right now you have a meeting in your calendar on December 18th, but that is actually after the submission date for the schematic design. So what we want to do instead is have a meeting on December 3rd, which is a Wednesday, and that is scheduled to avoid a city council meeting on the 4th. And at that meeting, we'll be presenting the schematic design estimate. And then the following week, we'll have two back-to-back meetings. The following meeting on the 11th, we'll be presenting the final schematic design submittal materials to you for your review and comment, and we'll be asking you to take a vote. And then the following week, December 17th, is the submission. So that's a lot. I'm going to keep going here, and then I'll come back and just ask if anybody has any comments about the schedule for the meetings. So OPM and design team line, the team has been working steadily on schematic design since we last saw you. We are required on December 3rd to give notice to the MSBA that we are on budget. This is actually I think it's a good process because it means that if for some reason the project was not on budget, we would need to delay the submission. And the MSBA does not want to know that at the last minute. So they impose on us a requirement that we have looked at the budget, reviewed the budget 2 weeks before the due date, and that we know that we're going to be able to make our timeline. I want to stay where we are for a bit. So coordination meetings, this line is just to say there are a lot of coordination meetings going on with different folks. We've had at least um, one design working group meeting in the past few weeks, which was focused, meeting on the 12th, which was focused on HVAC and geothermal coordination with the overall site plan. We have a meeting coming up next week that is focused on site plan review with city departments. The week after school opens, we will be having meetings with Z and others to look at plumbing, electrical, and fire protection. And then once school gets opened, Brooke and her team will be having more detailed programming meetings with the departmental staff at the high school to get more information about the process. And that is all pointing us to a process that's going to begin in early November with estimating the schematic design option, and that is about a 3-week process. Deb and I think Paul are going to give an update on the CM selection later in the meeting, but we're moving ahead, and I'm not going to say anything more about it now because we're going to talk about it later in the meeting. And then from the MSBA perspective, 2 weeks ago today, we received their comments on our preferred schematic report. And today, just before this meeting, I hit send on the responses. I will say that they were kind of, I would say, three big, they weren't as long as the last set we got. They were focused on a couple of issues. One was they wanted to see a lot more detail on the 712 options, which the city is not pursuing. So I asked for some more time from them to do that. We responded then to their questions on the preferred option. And they had questions about utilization. They had questions about square footage of some spaces. And then they asked for a set of diagrams from the design team that helped them understand particular issues of circulation. So, Brooke, I don't know if you and your team are going to present any of those today, but I will be sending around the comments tomorrow so that everybody can see them. So, and then next week on the 27th, the MSBA board will vote on the preferred schematic report. And at this point, the staff has made their recommendation to the board. Steve is going to be able to attend that meeting on behalf of the city and the building committee. And it's kind of a great moment because we know what we're doing, and they are having a chance to get an update on the project, and then we'll be moving forward. So I'm going to stop talking. Can we take the presentation down for just a second so I can see if anybody has any questions? Nate has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. This is the second or third time where you've referenced them wanting to have more information about the 7 to 12 design. I find it interesting because I think they know the reason why we're not pursuing it. Are they willing to consider a higher percentage of funding?
No.
So then why are they so interested in that?
I don't think they're interested in it at all.
Okay.
I think Brooke would agree with me. I think they're changing their standards for their expectations on level of detail. They're not actually taking issue at all with the reasons that the city is not pursuing 712. They're just asking for a lot of detail. And, the challenge with that is to Brooke and myself, Brooke, I think I'm speaking for you on this. they're asking the city to spend a bunch of money on things the city knows they don't want to do. But
Mhm.
the MSBA is the bank, so we're going to do what they're asking us to do. Brooke, is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment.
Any other questions about that? Or anything else that was on that rather packed calendar? Perla?
Just as a matter of scheduling, I wonder if we could consider, if we haven't discussed this already, if we could consider having the October meeting being on Zoom rather than trying to get through town in October to come to an
You
end.
know, that is a really good point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, does that make sense to everybody? I think, what did we say? It was the 14th?
I thought it was was it the 16th, perhaps?
It's the 16th.
It's the 16th. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Is there general agreement about that? Oh,
Agree with that.
We should have it downtown in the mayor's office on the 16th.
But we should also note, Margaret, that going forward, in-person meetings will be held at the school committee chambers at Collins Middle School.
sorry, my internet disconnected for a minute. What were you saying, Lisa?
That the future in-person meetings from here going forward, except for October,
Yeah.
I'll update the calendar to reflect that the meetings will be at the Collins Middle School School Committee chambers. That's been working for us. It's better audio. It's a better setup. I think most people agree. So just so everybody knows.
Folks hear me?
Well, we lost you for a second, Margaret.
Yeah, sorry, I switched Wi-Fi network, so hopefully I'm good. What did I?
He froze.
She just left. Let me
Yeah, she might be
reconnecting.
logging off the log background, right? Well, let's give it a minute.
Okay,
If she's still having trouble, we can move on to the presentations regarding
okay.
PLAs.
Sorry about that. I switched networks and I think I got kicked out and now I'm back. So, okay, are we all set on the meeting?
We're good. We're good with we'll make the necessary adjustments to the schedule going forward.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is project labor agreements. So just to recap for folks, we had a discussion, I think, 2 meetings ago, and then again at the last meeting about project labor. Then about project labor agreements and what had been requested. The North Shore Trade Council representatives are here tonight. They had asked to come and make a presentation, and the committee asked to hear an alternative perspective. So we also have a representative here from Associated Building Contractors. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to take turns making a presentation. They also provided us, and you received on Monday, and then again just before the meeting, I asked them to provide a written response to the determination questions that are in Executive Order 641. So this is an executive order that was signed by the governor in May that asks executive agencies to make a determination about whether a project labor agreement would benefit a particular project. So that is what we're going to do next. So I want to introduce Dan McNulty, Dan, you want to put your hand up so everybody can see you?
Hey,
And
everybody.
Rodrigo Badero, we're here from the North Shore Building Trades. And I also want to say Dan is a brand new dad. Dan, you look pretty good for someone that's probably not getting a lot of sleep. He's come back from paternity leave to make this presentation to us. And then they're going to take about 10 minutes to make a brief presentation. We'll take some time to find out if you have questions for them. And then we'll switch over to Greg Beeman after that. And then we'll have time, once they've done their piece, we'll have time for a committee discussion after that. So Dan and Rodrigo, I don't know whether is it helpful for us to go around and introduce ourselves and to have the building committee introduce themselves. I called out at the beginning of the meeting voting members, but we also have non-voting members. So is that helpful for you? Or should we just launch?
I think we should launch in the interest of time. I know you've got a full meeting, and we'll try to keep it to our time as well, but um, unless
Okay.
folks think otherwise from the committee.
I would say go ahead and start your
I think that's
presentation.
fine.
Great. And if I'm able to screen share as well, if you just could make sure, but I think Rod's going to open us up.
All right. So I'm ready to go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, co-chairs, members of the school building committee, and Mayor Pangalo for this great opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Rodrigo Badaro. I'm the president of the North Shore Building Trades and the business representative with DC35, the Painters and Allied Trades Union. The North Shore Building Trades represents thousands of members of workers across the North Shore, including many from Salem. We work closely with the North Shore Labor Council, which represents union members throughout the region. We are here this afternoon to share the benefits to the community of using a project labor agreement for the construction of the new Salem High School. With that, I would like to introduce Dan McNulty, Director of Operations for the Massachusetts Building Trades, to begin our presentation.
Thanks very much, Rod. As Rod said, I'm Dan McNulty. I'm Director of Operations at Massachusetts Building Trades Unions. We're the state political legislative council for over 75,000 union trades women and men in Massachusetts, over 14 different trades. So iron workers, electricians, carpenters, laborers, all the different trades that come together to build a building. Really grateful for the time tonight. As Margaret mentioned, this executive order was created last year for state construction to require PLAs, and we also had a law passed to allow municipalities to use PLAs and clarify what that criteria is. So that's the criteria that you received a letter on, that I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on this and be able to take questions from folks about it. So also to being a new parent, sleep shifts have been huge. So just dividing the night up so that I'm up till 3, not even pretending like I'm going to sleep has been good. Um, so I'm going to do a quick screen share and show you some material. Also, I know we're talking about building a school and there's teachers on here. I've committed the cardinal sin of overstuffing these slides, but I'm going to go through them briefly just at the same time. So we're going to really cruise through this. Let me share my screen. All right. Can folks see this? I see a thumbs up from Nate. Okay, cool. So launching right in, the reason we think a project labor agreement makes so much sense for Salem High School is around budget for the project, the schedule of the project, and then the mission of this project. Because like Margaret said, there's the executive order. This law, though, that was created in December of last year that the governor then used for the executive order is around community impact. It's around making sure it's the best use of taxpayer dollars, but also that there's the most maximum benefit directly and indirectly for the city. So what that determination is it breaks down the 6 criteria that we answered in that short letter. We have a considerably larger letter if folks want it that has more details about it. But the 6 criteria that we're going to hit on that are key PLA details: cost, construction efficiency, direct and indirect benefit to Salem, availability of a sufficient supply of skilled workers, schedule and preventing delays, safety and project quality, expansion of registered apprenticeship and workforce development, and then employment and training opportunities for women, people of color, and veterans. This is what the law laid out and said. If it hits these 6 criteria and seems beneficial to Salem's high school and the construction of it, you should proceed with a PLA, or you can do so. PLAs have been used since the 1930s onward. The shorthand I always say is a PLA is a collective bargaining agreement for a project. But the reason that PLAs exist and are a pre-hire agreement, which doesn't really happen in other industries, is an acknowledgement of the construction workforce. Transient, non-permanent workforce, you have different trades coming on and off at all different times, upwards of 15 different employers operating on that job site, the different subcontractors under the general contractor, and then varying schedule and workforce capabilities. So it was found out, hey, it's really important on important projects that we have this framework. We have this added level. 17 states in the US have passed laws or executive orders promoting PLA usage. So this is not a new thing. This is not, hey, Massachusetts, let's figure this out. PLAs on tens of billions of dollars of public construction per year across the US. The Biden administration passed an executive order requiring all federal construction over 35 million to use a PLA. That is still in effect to this day, even under President Trump. And then many infrastructure grant programs cite PLAs as key scoring factors for workforce development and community impact. So that being said, this is the executive order that was listed. Massachusetts has done the same thing. Hey, when we build over 35 million, which Salem High School is considerably over 35 million, we want to make sure it's done responsibly, done right the first time, has proven workforce development and enforcement, and is going to benefit the towns and cities and the state and DCAM when they do build. These happen all the time in Massachusetts. The private sector nationally accounts for 87% of PLA usage. So to folks that are saying, hey, let's follow the market and let's see what's being done, this is a best practice for private construction. We're talking Apple, Intel, Honda, General Motors, you name it. All different levels. Over 150 billion of private sector PLA work gets done every year in the US. A prime recent example for private sector PLA usage is the Port of Salem project labor agreement with Crowley Wind Services and North Shore Building Trades Council. Rodrigo was brought in on that. Private sector, working with Salem, said we want to make sure this is really important construction for growing the offshore wind industry and having a functional port for Salem. Let's make sure we do this right with the project labor agreement. And Salem said, we really want to make sure we have local hire, diverse workforce, and this is not just a good faith effort. This is enforceable. So they went ahead and proceeded to negotiate a PLA on that. And that's around 300 million is that project. Another great example of public PLAs is Boston Public Schools just signed a project labor agreement MOU for a number of different schools coming up in the future for the same exact reasons. We want to make sure these are done right. We want to make sure there's a pipeline of good, supported jobs coming into this industry, that it's diverse, that it's enforceable. So we're seeing them pop up all over the place in Massachusetts now that this law changed. The last 20 years, we have not seen many public sector PLAs in Massachusetts because case law basically made it so unclear when a PLA would apply. Just vague enough definitions that some small projects were PLAs, some large were approved, some larger projects were not approved. It was a mishmash. So the legislature, in creating this law, basically laid out those 6 criteria to say, here's what we judge a PLA on. So that's why we haven't seen many in recent time. But now that this law has been clarified, we're seeing them flourishing in mass. So I'm going to go through some of the cost elements of this right off the top. So important framing for this conversation is construction trade labor on a project. We're talking about the total cost that's going to be for Salem here is around, and with the MSBA as well, is around 23% of a project's cost. That's not talking materials, permitting, land, all the other factors that are the dominant share of a project. So, and that's from the economic census of construction. So right off the bat, it's important to know we're talking around a quarter of the project would be labor cost. And all public construction in Massachusetts requires prevailing wage, which basically says, hey, if you're a plumber in Essex County, we're gonna find out what the average wage would be, and that's gonna be a floor we're gonna pay you. And that closely resembles the union rate. So Salem is going to be paying essentially union rate on every trade for this project. Um, if a PLA isn't used, you're paying a very similar rate, but you're not getting any of the benefits that we're talking about as far as the pipeline, the effect on project costs and stability, workforce development, enforcement. So I want to lay that out there as important things.
You have 2 minutes
Important
left.
also,
Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry.
2 minutes.
All right, I'll pick it up. Thank you. And I think this section is the most important. But so to that detail, we have a lot of different information around PLAs not affecting total project cost, but also bid submissions. So when we talk about these studies, we're talking about the final project that came in, not on the bids. If you might see a union bid be higher, well, a non-union bid could come in and have change orders and all different things to change it. One of the studies that gets used constantly to say PLAs increase project costs in Massachusetts is has been thoroughly debunked. It's from 2007, and it talks about look at PLAs affecting school project, increasing it by 20%, but failing in its statistical model to talk about complexity, size, location, all the other things that already make a project more expensive. So that has been thrown out basically as um, not a strong enough statistical standing. I'm going to breeze through this really quickly to say there's a study that happened that was over 1,500 projects that looked at union labor productivity, found that union labor is 14% higher versus open shop, that you had way less skill turnover that happened, 40% less likely to experience a shortage of skilled labor. All these factors that are key for determination with a really significant data set across the country. We also have Illinois in 2025 released a study that said 773 public construction projects in Illinois that had PLAs and didn't. PLAs increased bid competition by an average of 14%. Once folks saw these standards were there, they wanted to bid and get involved in it. And then PLAs having no significant effect on total construction cost. Again, whatever the bids come in at, the total construction cost was not statistically tipped by PLAs. So I'm going to move through this part briefly because that's the cost information, but local hire is the important detail as well.
Excuse me, Margaret,
Yep.
we're at 10 minutes. So what are we doing?
Mark, can I hit the local hire section before we close?
Yes, I mean, go for it, Dan.
All right. So this is more details on schedule. And the one detail I'll say before I go past this slide is when you're working with union halls and we're talking about the skills gap and trying to make sure there's more workers, all of our union halls are elastic. If you need 10 plumbers today, a crisis happens on the job site, you need 30 plumbers. We have an elastic workforce that's able to scale up and down. That's one of the factors that is really important because if you're talking 14, upwards of 20 trades on a job site, that elasticity in the union hall model is really important. And again, the administration of it. So what I'll hit on, and also safety. Union job sites are 20% less likely to have safety violations. The key details on local hire. Massachusetts trains 75% of all registered apprentices in Massachusetts. For diversity and workforce, which this project wants to hit those goals, 88% of all tradeswomen apprentices in Mass are enrolled in union programs. 88% of all tradeswomen apprentices. 81% of all apprentices of color are in union programs. The key details of a PLA is cost and quality of a project and stability and predictability of that, but then also registered apprenticeship, local hire of Salem residents. As Rod mentioned, we've got over 450 different building trades members in Salem alone and over 6,000 in Essex County. Tradeswomen, people of color, and then Salem Voc Tech students and integration of that. So I'll put these all up on the board for you. I'll hit on two of these, which is working with Salem High School in the vocational technical program. Rod has already done extensive work with Mario Sousa, just like our unions do, to make sure that there is a pipeline of students and vocational students knowing not just to enter the construction industry for a job, but for a career that has good benefits, pension, annuity, safety, representation on a job, if there's any issues going on, being able to speak about it. So Rod has done that work with Mario, and a PLA is a key place that we could include and heighten that pipeline work to try to make sure that this is affecting Salem students. Wage theft is a huge plague in the construction industry. A PLA job, you have enforcement and representation for all the different trades. That's crucial for safety and cost. The final thing I'll say is project labor agreements bring the entire North Shore labor community and Salem to the battle, to supporting this project, because we know that we can, once this is negotiated, we know that we can point to this being a strong project. There's a strong floor that's been set of standards for this. That means teachers union, that means the Labor Council, knocking doors, getting community support, fighting against tax overrides, supporting tax overrides, I should say, to make sure this project gets over the finish line, because we know workers aren't going to get left behind. This is going to be a positive project. We're going to have union Salem members being able to commute across town for this project. So at the end of the day, local hire and cost are huge factors for why Salem should use a PLA on this high school. And when you talk about those things, well, we can get those regardless. Good faith efforts are the bane of the construction industry. Everyone in this room that has experience knows that when you say you need tradeswomen, you say you need people of color or local hire, when a project's underway, it can be a nightmare to try to have corrective action, to try to pull that back. We are adding enforcement and oversight, an access and opportunity committee, the structure of all of our unions and representation of our members, and the partnership with these contractors to be able to do so, to be able to meet these and be elastic as we need to do so. So I've given you a lot. You have these materials in the short 4-page, and then there is a longer version we can send and other materials as well. But we'd love questions and whatever other flow there is, Margaret.
So, so of the 15 minutes, Dan's taken a couple of the question minutes, but why don't we take this down for a second and take just 3 minutes for questions? Does anybody on the committee have a question they want to ask about Dan's presentation? I think I am seeing no hands. So,
Oh, Rick has a
has.
question.
Rick has a question.
Go ahead, Rick.
I think
You're
you're
muted.
muted, Rick.
Might be beneficial to take questions after we hear the other presentation.
Okay. One other hand.
Chris, you want to wait till after the second presentation? Okay, Chris is going to wait.
Okay. Well then, thank you, Dan and Rodrigo. I'm going to turn the floor over to Greg Beeman to introduce himself and give us his take on the issue. Can I just ask Tom Wall? I see you here, but I'm not sure who you are. Can you introduce yourself?
Tom Wall, I'm with the North Shore Building Trades as well.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Beeman, where are you?
I'm right here. Thank you very much, Margaret, and thanks to the committee. Appreciate the chance to share some thoughts tonight. So as Margaret said, I'm Greg Beeman, and I am the president of the Massachusetts chapter of Associated Builders and Contractors, ABC. ABC represents 475 contractors and businesses in Massachusetts, and we're part of a national association of 21,000 members and 67 chapters. Our members are open shop or non-union. Our chapter operates the Gould Construction Institute, which is a state licensed private occupational school that trains our members in the industry at large, and we also operate a state registered apprenticeship program. So we in the open shop operate under a different model than our union counterparts. In the open shop model, each company maintains its own workforce, which is in contrast to the union model where there are centralized labor pools. I believe it's a hallmark of our Massachusetts construction industry that we have robust and talented union and open shop sectors. When a PLA is added to a project, the opportunity that comes from a broad industry-wide talent pool and marketplace is minimized. Under a PLA, a project effectively becomes a union-only project. Why? This is because a PLA requires construction unions to be the sole source of labor for the project. The PLA is a binding agreement which states and I'm quoting from a PLA, all applicants for various classifications covered under the agreement required by the contractor shall be referred to the contractor by the local union. How does this union labor provision affect the overall workforce? According to the US government data published by unionstats.com, 83.4% of the Massachusetts construction workforce is not unionized. So there's a significant reduction in workforce opportunities with the PLA in place. On this point, the Boston Globe in a 2024 editorial said, quote, "It is unfair to the many Massachusetts construction workers who are not union members. It means those workers are paying taxes to help fund projects that PLAs would exclude them from working on." As I said, and I think this is significant, open shop contractors hire, train, and develop their own employees. And with the PLA, rather than using their own employees, they have to get their labor from the unions. It simply doesn't make sense for open shop contractors to take on an important construction project without their own employee team. There's just too much risk. Another unreasonable requirement of PLAs is with employee benefits. On top of the benefits that an open shop that it is providing to its employees under a PLA, they also have to pay into union benefit funds. So it's a double payment. It's just not competitive. So for these reasons, open shop contractors do not bid on PLA projects. And in my many years of working with open shops, I've only seen one who's actually bid on a PLA project. And when there are fewer bidders, there's less competition, and that likely means higher costs. Just want to cite a couple of examples. The Springfield Water and Sewer Commission's own consultant said using a PLA on its $325 million treatment plant would increase costs by about $15.5 million. The authority went ahead with the PLA, but when it was dropped after court injunction and open shop contractors joined the bidding, the winning electrical bid alone was $15 million below the lowest union subcontractor's bid. In August of 2021, the RAND Corporation published research on the effects of PLAs on affordable housing production in Los Angeles under Proposition H. This report found a 14.5% increase in construction costs with a PLA. It also found that without a PLA, approximately 800 additional units of housing could have been produced with the same funding. PLAs also pose challenges for minority contractors who tend to be smaller, and the vast majority are open shop. In a letter to the Mass Senate, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, BECMA, wrote, quote, "We are deeply concerned about the historical exclusionary effect that PLAs have had on Black, Latinx, Asian, Indigenous, immigrant women, and LGBT workers and construction firms. A PLA prohibits construction firms owned by Black people and other people of color, which are overwhelmingly open shop, from using their own workforce, which they have hired, trained, and developed, and that are drawn largely from communities of color." Just a couple of other quick points on PLAs. Training. There are claims that PLAs are necessary to ensure properly trained workers. We provide training through our Gould School, as I mentioned, and also should be noted that all workers are licensed under the same requirements, pass the same test, receive the same license, whether they're union or not, whether a PLA is in place or not. On wages, as Dan noted, they're all set under the Mass Prevailing Wage Law, which is union scale wages. So that would apply whether there's a PLA or not. On legal issues, as Dan noted, there is a new law that comes on top of a Callahan Supreme Court decision that I would acknowledge is a little unclear, but that decision put some limits on the use of PLAs. We'll see what happens with this new law. There are the new criteria that we're both provided information on. So we don't yet know exactly how the courts will impact this. I will note, though, as it relates to the best interest of a municipality, that the Springfield injunction that was issued last year, that court decision said, quote, "The public interest is manifest. The public benefits from an open, fair, competitive, and robust bidding process. The PLA unnecessarily curtails this." ABC was part of that legal challenge with some of our contractors. Would obviously prefer not to go to court, but if our members and employees don't have a fair chance to work, we will look at options that are available. I just want to quickly note that AGC, as I'm sure a lot of you know, a large trade group here in Mass that represents both union and non-union contractors, issued a position earlier this year on PLAs, which reads in part, quote, "The filed sub-bid law and prevailing wage requirements help maintain a level playing field across the industry. However, PLAs pose a significant risk to this balance by effectively excluding open shop contractors from bidding on public projects. AGC believes PLAs should be considered only in rare and exceptional cases." I would ask you to take a quick moment to think about what it would look like if the premise of a PLA, that there is one sole and exclusive source of labor, was applied differently. Imagine if there was a reverse PLA where union contractors had to go to ABC in the open shop for their workers. This would certainly be unworkable for the unions and their contractors, and I think there's little doubt that it would not make any sense and not be in the best interest of Salem or any municipality. So I think then it's a fair question to ask how it could be considered in the best interest of Salem or any municipality to adopt a PLA that puts unworkable labor requirements in place for open shops and their workers who make up a significant part of the industry and whose absence is likely to be negative in terms of impacting bidding and costs. On this point, I would note what your consultant, PM&C, stated in its letter, which is, quote, "It is highly likely that a PLA will reduce the amount of competition in the subcontractor market and will likely result in higher pricing." A final point, and there certainly is a lot of pro and con information. Dan did a nice job presenting. I will submit two simple points that I believe you can rely on. One, with a PLA, you should expect union participation and expect no open shop participation. Without a PLA, you should expect both union participation and open shop participation. In closing, we believe it's in the best interest of the city of Salem to maximize opportunities for a large and inclusive bidding and workforce pool through open bidding, union and open shop without the labor restrictions of a PLA. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So Nate and Rick, as the co-chairs, what we had next on the agenda was a discussion. Nate, I actually just emailed you the complete committee list, which includes some folks who are not here tonight. But how would you like to approach this? By the way, Greg, thank you. You know, as Greg noted, we did include in your packet a letter from Peter Bradley that talks very briefly about the impact that the reduction in competition is likely to have on the subcontractor market. But with that
Do you want to
read into the record,
Could you remind
Rick?
the committee? Could you remind the committee who Peter is and what his role is?
Yes. So we have, you may remember, we have two different estimators working on this project. So one is working for the owner's project manager, and the other PM&C, Peter Bradley is the principal of that firm, is working for the design team. So we asked Peter, who's worked on the most recent estimates, to provide the letter. So that's in your packet. So Rick and Nate, how would you like to manage gathering feedback or hearing questions from the group?
So, I mean, this is an important decision, and so I would like to allow some time for folks who have questions to ask questions, particularly since we have the representatives here. I don't want it to get unwieldy, so I'd like to put a cap on it. I'd say 10 minutes max for Q&A, and then we can move on to the vote. So I would like to do it that way. I don't know, Rick, if you have other ideas.
No, I think that's fine. If folks I mean, we had all the material for a week now, so thank you.
And let's stick to committee members only for the purposes of asking questions. And of course, the representatives can answer those questions. So why don't we do that? And Lisa, would you mind just a 10-minute time? Thank you. So committee members, here's your opportunity to ask questions of the representatives before we go on to a vote. I see Lori.
Yes, I just asking for clarification. Greg, did I hear you say that that you made a comment that you would sue the city or your organization would sue the city if we went union. Did I hear that correctly?
No, that what I said is, and I will be clear, that anytime that there's anything put in place where the net result is that the people that we represent are unable to work, we're going to look at whatever the options are. That's not meant as a threat. I honestly just am saying that because there's a changed legal landscape. What the options to sue are, quite honestly, I'm not even sure at this point. So it's not at all meant as a threat. It's more meant as informational that, you know, whatever options might be available, whenever there's something that prevents the people we represent, you know, who still are tax-paying members of the public and qualified contractors, they simply don't use union labor. But it's not meant as a threat. It just means, honestly, we'll look at our options, and so I hope that answers your question.
It did. Thank you.
Sure.
Paul?
Yeah, I think I'll direct this to Mr. McNulty first. But Mr. Beaman, you may have more information on this. So there was a statement about 450, I assume, tradespeople in the city of Salem who are union affiliated. Do you know how many are in the total pool of open shop and union labor? I mean, 450 seems to be a very small number compared to the number of potential workers that could participate in the project from the North Shore, from the city of Salem. And then the 6,000, I think you remarked on union affiliated members on the North Shore. Again, do you, from a pool of what, or what is the percentage of union labor on the total pool of potential laborers in the North Shore and in Salem?
Got you, Paul. I don't have a total figure for amount of Salem construction workers or Essex County. One important detail, though, as well is, as has been mentioned, non-union and union contractors can bid and participate in a PLA. They just need to have the workforce meet the standards of those unions. That also means organizing. So that means when there's 3 years of a project in Salem, and there are Salem residents, there are Salem plumbers and electricians that want to go union, Rodrigo and other folks are directly trying to hit local hire goals and saying, we need to organize folks and make sure that they can participate on this project so that our contractors are hitting these different goals. So to the point around the elasticity of it, our unions are able to scale up in reaction to projects, especially because construction projects are multiple years. So that 450 is the starting figure we have of the different 14 trades. By the end of the project, it would be a different figure as we're trying to find that out. And again, with a PLA, it's benchmarks along the way to say 2 months in, Margaret, other folks are saying our contractors aren't meeting these different metrics. We're not getting enough tradeswomen. We're not getting enough, et cetera. That is when we have corrective action that's going on. That's one of the key details.
Thank you, Mr. McNulty. Mr. Beaman, do you know what the number of open shop workers on the North Shore and Essex is?
No, unfortunately, no. I agree with Dan. I wish we had better, you know, sort of targeted data in the state. I would say this, that I think if you look at both sides of the industry, you don't see issues on any large project schools in particular where the contractors involved, be they union or non-union, are not meeting labor requirements. I think we don't really see that right now as an industry issue.
Greg, I have a question. Do you have any data on the number of union workers who are working on open shop projects, roughly?
Well, I would say, Mr. Chair, that generally works like this. So it would be what I would say would be a mixed project. So in other words, it wouldn't be open shop per se. It would be, it could be another public building where there's a typical model would be, there could be a union GC, and a number of the sub trades will be open shop, a number will be union. And that's the common model. And there's, there's a number of, I mean, electrical is probably a trade where there's a good example. There's a good number of large electrical open shop contractors that are regularly working on public projects alongside union contractors, and there's no issues with it. It's just routine. So, in our view, that's one of the challenges we see with the PLA. And in other words, it sort of takes this presumption that you need a different model, that it has to be, in this case, all union. And I just do want to be clear on it. It isn't that early on in the PLA legacy, I guess I would say, it was sort of an open question as to whether the workers all had to come from the union. It's pretty clear. If you're an open shop contractor, you can absolutely bid. You can bid on the project for sure, but you're going to have to sign the contract with the PLA that says you have to get all your labor from the union. That's a fact. That's the problem. So that's why they don't end up bidding. And I think it's unfortunate, because why not tap into, I respect all the things that my colleagues from the trade said about what they bring to the table, but why does it have to limit the ability of others in the industry to also participate? If there's certain issues that need to be addressed vis-a-vis scheduling or something else, I don't see any reason why open shop contractors would be opposed to it. It's that labor restriction.
Thank you. Jenna, and then Rick.
Just if each of you could answer the question quickly. I really wanted a little bit more information about how trade unions and approach the apprenticeship goals, and to sort of particularly around local versus how an open shop contractor approaches apprenticeship.
Dan, can I answer that?
Yeah, Rod, you want to go first?
All right. So thank you for the question, Gina. One of the things that we do, even before this high school was proposed or there was any conversations about it, I don't know if Mario Souza is on the call. We go to the Salem CTE program on a regular basis to talk to the students about opportunities in the building trades. Like I said, these jobs are not just a job. We want to create careers that they can start working in Salem. One of the things, Jenna, that's very important that we have the ability to have on a PLA is to have local hire target numbers, right? As an example, we have a young lady that we have a job in Salem that has some local hire requirements. The company hired her. She's not going to be ready to go to that job within 3 weeks, but she was hired. She's working in Boston now. She's a Salem resident. She's an apprentice. So we have over 40 facilities in the state of Massachusetts on the construction industry that I represent. We take applicants once a month, 25 candidates each month. And what we do, part of the organizing department, we have different job fairs. We go, for instance, in Salem, I was there 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, doing job fairs to educate members of the community. So I don't know if I answer your question. What we do, we're doing constant outreach throughout the community, throughout job fairs, schools. Salem CT program is an example. Youth Build in Salem. Also, our members go to the Salem High School after dark for adults, giving opportunity for members of Salem. We do this in Somerville. We do this all over the state.
And just to add real briefly, Jenna, just the numbers alone, our programs are investing 68 million a year in our training programs that are the state of the art for electricians, clean energy, sustainability, you name it. We have 75% of all registered apprentices in Massachusetts in union programs. Just to say that point again, 75% of all registered apprentices are in union programs. So we're talking about hitting these actual goals. We actually can deliver on it. And that's a key part of it, is that enforcement and that watching that comes with an access and opportunity. I know Rick has a question. I hope I can give a closing statement after this too, but Rick.
Nate, we've
I
hit
don't
the
know. I don't
10-minute
know,
mark.
Greg.
I thought,
Hold on.
can Greg just answer it quickly? How
Yeah.
they approach it? If he has.
Yeah,
thoughts?
sure. We have a not-for-profit called Building Mass Careers. It does similar things in terms of outreach. I will say one thing with apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship, a challenge, at least certainly in our view, is the ratios are very restrictive. In some cases, 5 journeymen for each apprentice. That's a challenge, honestly. Maybe a discussion for another time, but that's the reality of what is in place now in Massachusetts.
Oh,
So we're gonna give Rick the last question, and then we're gonna end there.
Well, I have a comment on what was just discussed, actually, which,
Okay.
and then I have a request of Margaret. In terms of, just for the sake of the committee, we can write in whatever we want in terms of local hire, in terms of minority women-owned business participation, in terms of apprenticeship requirements into our RFQ, regardless of whether this is a PLA project or not. So just so everyone on the committee understands that. Margaret, could you read into the record the very brief letter from PM&C about competition?
Yeah. So, again, it's in your packet. He said to read Salem High School PLA opinion because we asked specifically as an independent agent to give his opinion on this. He says, in response to your request for an opinion on the impact of using a project labor agreement on the Salem High School project, I would say that it's highly likely that a PLA will reduce the amount of competition in the subcontractor market, and this will result in higher pricing, thus adversely impacting the project budget. That
If I could respond to Rick or
is
that
a
letter,
very
Margaret.
concise letter.
So
Sorry,
Margaret,
who's
if I,
speaking?
I don't know if Margaret cut out.
I'm willing to give
No, I'm here.
Nate.
Okay, and we'll afford Greg a response as well. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I'm willing to
Great.
give Nate and Dan like a 1-minute closing argument.
I appreciate it, Rick. A lot of fear has been brought up of different things. And I will say that PMC letter, just like a lot of the argument Greg makes on competition, we haven't had public sector PLAs in Massachusetts around 20 years, except for very small state examples. That data is old. The data talking about PLAs changing and increasing final cost per project didn't look at complexity, size, or location. It doesn't really have a leg to stand on. We are in a new era in Massachusetts of using PLAs. The PMC letter, just please consider that if you look at Illinois in the data set, we have a huge amount of information on that. The other thing is, yes, Rick, you can add local hire, you can add registered apprenticeship, these different things. This is to have a PLA is to go beyond a good faith effort. Salem does not want to be 6 months down the road saying, we have non-union bids came in super low, but we're having change orders left and right. We're not getting our tradeswomen numbers. Schedule has been pushed. We aren't getting local hire because contractors can just say, I'm trying, I'm trying. What unions bring in PLAs is that additional level of framework and enforcement. So I'll leave it there. We want to go beyond good faith efforts and make sure Salem benefits from this. This is the difference besides just putting the language in an RFP. Thank you, everyone.
Greg?
What I would say,
Comment?
sure, I'll be real quick. I would just say regarding the point in the letter, I think it's pretty commonsensical and logical that if you have more bidders, you're going to have more competition and generally lower prices. And it's not, I've been doing this for 30 years. There's been PLAs up and down over that 30 years. They're not really a new phenomenon. We may see more of them, we'll see, but there's been quite a number of them over the years. The open shops don't bid. So I guess what I would say is, obviously it's your decision, and I know you're doing a lot of due diligence, but the lack of open shop participation, I think it's bound to affect the bidding. And I'll end it there. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Rodrigo. We appreciate you presenting today. How do you want to go? What direction you want to go in, Margaret? You want to read the motion? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's look at the motion.
Okay.
Brooke, do you mind? I can pull it up or you can pull it up. I think you had it open last. Okay, so having you can see, so this is the motion that we drafted that's in the packet. Having conducted a review of the project, the best interest of the Salem High School would or would not be furthered by a project labor agreement. So does someone want to make a motion for discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Need a second.
Brooke, can you take the image down?
Did we get a second on the motion?
What is the motion? Is the motion
Just to
would or the
discuss.
motion would not?
I'm sorry?
Is the
You
motion
have
you
to-
would or the motion you would not? Because the image had both. So which way are you moving?
So I think this is what we should do. We should, a yes vote would be, I think we should, a motion based on what you just read.
What we
Yeah,
just
but you
read
are-
said would not.
You have to
Okay.
you have to choose would or would not.
Okay, so then we got to do a roll call vote. And then obviously a would be for
No,
PLA.
I don't think
No,
that's.
you need to make a motion. I move that this would.
the
I'd like to
motion.
make a motion to say yes on the project agreement.
No,
Okay.
The
can
PLA.
someone, I'm sorry,
Fine.
can someone put the slide back? I'll make the
Yeah.
motion.
Okay.
Can you put the slide back?
Coming.
So I'm making a motion, having conducted a review of the project, the best interests of the Salem High School would be furthered by a project labor agreement. That means a yes would approve of the PLA, a no would not approve the PLA and go to open shop and union. So it would be having conducted a review of the project, the best interests of the Salem High School would be furthered by a project labor agreement. Again, a positive vote yes would be for the PLA. A negative vote no would be to not have a PLA.
And I'm going to second the motion. So we're going to roll call?
I guess we'll ask if there's any questions
Oh,
before
yeah.
any more additional questions.
Comments, questions?
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Anthony,
I would vote no.
Dominic, Mayor Pangalo,
We'll come back to that.
Beth Ann Cornell,
No.
Glenn Burns,
No.
Nate Bryant,
No.
Rick Jones,
No.
Matt Formica,
No.
Betsy Riccarelli,
I'm a no.
Perla Aguero.
No.
Bob is not here. Lori Miranda,
Yes.
Keith Tamilio,
Yes, for the PLA.
Paul Lucica,
No.
excuse me, Jenna Ide.
Yes.
Okay, 3 in favor. 9 opposed.
Any
Oh, and
abstentions?
any abstentions?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes,
The motion is to approve moving forward with PLA.
correct.
I'll vote yes.
So that makes 4 votes in favor, 9 votes opposed.
So the motion does not pass. Okay. Again, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Rodrigo, and thank you, Greg. The committee has spoken. We will not be entering into a PLA agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the design progress update.
Yeah, Brooke, can you pull up the PowerPoint, and let me just close out one thing from the overview, the schedule overview. I want to just comment, and we can come back to this at the end. This is in your pack. I want to give the committee a huge shout out. I think Nate has a spreadsheet going that is of which this is only a piece, which is keeping track of all the community events, and people are at them. I know Paul was at the farmers market this afternoon. People are sending me pictures. In fact, this is an older iteration of this because we've now got all the back to school nights plugged in. So Rick, do you want to say anything about this? I think you wanted to encourage everybody to sign up, and we can share the link for this.
Well, kudos to Nate for initiating this and getting this launched. But yes, it'd be great to have folks volunteering. In that column on the right, you can see some names, folks who are helping out by showing up with the boards, which have been housed at my office for the moment. Yeah, it'd just be great to have people signing up to show up for some of these events, to be able to help share the burden of getting the message out.
Do you want to say anything about their fabulous conversations with community members?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. I'll lower my hand, but just logistically, in Anthony's office or in the basement, there is a magic cart with all of the tent and a table and a chair. So if you're in need of that, it's just trying to schedule a pickup at City Hall. And again, the boards, which after several meetings still look in good shape, those are in Rick's office and can be gathered during working hours quite easily. My experience has been so far very positive. A few people are skeptical, but in general, when you walk them through the no yes boards in particular, it gives them some pause. Everyone is asking how much is it going to cost them, so I think we should focus a little bit on getting that number as quickly as possible, as right as possible, of course, but people want to know. Even the people that are totally for the project just want to understand how it affects their tax bill or what their assessed value piece is. So in general, I think people are interested mostly. They've heard about it, but they don't know the particulars, and these are really good ways of reaching out to people to give them an explanation about what it, in fact, is happening. And once they get that, I think they're very interested.
That's
We're
great.
going to go Ryan, Anthony, the mayor, and then Rick.
Could the spreadsheet get emailed out again? I don't believe I have it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually a link, Rylan, and this is
Yeah.
not quite up to date because we've got all the back to school nights in the actual document. So, yeah,
I'll get it out to you.
thank you, Nate.
Yeah. Anthony?
So I would echo everything that Paul said as far as what my experience has been like. I will just add that the table and chair are actually the sustainability department, and the tent are the sustainability departments. So they're actually in Neil's custody. I've been wrangling them because I've been doing the farmers market second shifts. But I don't have a key to the basement, but I can access those things. So if somebody does need to get them, I'm happy to coordinate getting it, but I'll need some heads up because I need to find somebody who has access to it.
People can reach out
I
to
don't-
me too directly if they need
or-
to, you know, but either way, sorry.
Something I will say the majority of the people I've encountered have been in favor of it, wanting more information. The people that I've found against it, I didn't really feel like they were winnable, but I did my best. If anyone feels like they have in a conversation with someone in the community converted someone from a no to a yes, I would love to hear what your approach was and adapt it myself. So I would encourage anyone who can speak to that to do so.
Mayor, and then Steve.
I think I managed to persuade a couple of people, and it's largely around the cost of a no being more than the cost of a yes. So I would suggest that we talked in the past about putting some kind of calculator on the website once we have a better sense of the reimbursement and how that will play into the actual debt that will be incurred by taxpayers. I think we should do something similar for the code upgrade version and have a side by side, put in your tax bill or your value and see what it's going to cost you if we say yes to state funding, what it will cost if we say no. And that's the other thing is I've been framing it not as yes or no to a debt exclusion, but yes or no to accepting state funding to improve our high school. And why wouldn't we say yes to state funding? In addition to these, Steve, Rick, and Nate and I did a program on SATV. I think it's up now about the project, kind of updating from our program that we had done about a year ago. And we'll be going to the city council for a committee of the whole presentation in September. That date's not set yet, but we're working with the council president to schedule it. And I'll just also add that the League of Women Voters has included a question about this project and the debt exclusion vote in their questionnaire to candidates, including the city council candidates, since we are going to have a substantial turnover of city councilors this year. So hopefully when that's published, we'll have a good sense of where the council is potentially going to land when the bond order comes up in January.
Thanks. Dr. Zweig?
Yep. Yes, I know who that is, but just quickly, I would any support during the open houses would be much appreciated. We'll have big crowds at those. Parents are always there, and particularly the elementary schools. There'll be a lot of families who will benefit from this new facility. So any help we can get from anybody on this committee at any of those open houses that I think Margaret populated into this spreadsheet, I would really appreciate.
Two questions.
Dr. Zweig, are those now on the updated?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're not on this SNP, but if you go to the document, you'll see all the back to school nights. Dr. Drake sent them to me this morning, so they've been updated.
They're not yet on the district calendar. They will be in the next week, but you all have the dates will not change. You have all the dates.
Great. Thank you.
So I just have two quick comments. Number one is if you, again, I've said this in a couple of emails, if you know of an event that you think would be advantageous for us to be at, if you could let me know, and I would appreciate if you know a contact person, or if you know the person you want to get in touch with them and get permission, I would appreciate it. Then you can go ahead and populate this document. I try not to populate, me personally, I try not to populate it unless I've got a confirmation from the organizer of the event. That's the first comment. Second comment is there do we think there's any need to make any updates to the current boards that we're using, or they seem to be working? I know the mayor talked about a kind of a debt calculator for the web, but is there any other information that, based on the feedback that we've gotten, would make sense to maybe alter or create a new board with information? Rick?
One thing that's missing from the yes/no vote boards is the risk of accreditation, which Dr. Zweig raised when we were at the ice cream bowl. But I think that's just one more bullet point we could add, and we could kind of fashion that. I don't think we need to reprint the whole board for that.
Okay.
That's a critical point to be made.
Nate, I'd say look at the slides today, but I would say we probably want to update the first floor at least, because there are some changes, and we'll go over them tonight.
Good point. Okay. I have described that a half dozen times, Brooke, by doing this.
Okay.
I'm sure you could sketch it out right over the drawing.
So, Brooke, maybe you and I we can talk offline about
Sure.
how to make those adjustments. Okay.
Most
Any
of them.
other questions, comments about this? And again, if we really, to Rick's point, we really appreciate committee members volunteering for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of these events. Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, on the Community Life Center presentations, so these times and dates, are those just standing outside the door, are those in the lobby, or are those presentations that we have access to a different venue? How does that work? Do you know?
So they're going to be, you're talking about, yeah, they're going to be inside.
Yeah.
I forgot the woman who I spoke with. It's almost like she said, we'll give you a table. We're not, we can't guarantee that people are going to be there, but we'll give you a table and you can set up your boards, and if people walk by and they ask questions, they can. So it's kind of casual, if
Yeah,
you will.
great. Great.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may, those are the days that the food pantry truck and the free blood pressure clinics are all happening at the same time. So they get a lot of foot traffic in those days, at those times.
So, I mean, if weather permitting, we could probably do it outside because the food truck is outside. Mhm. All right. Are we on to the design progress update?
Yes, we are. Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to allow us to present to you the design update. We have a few other team members with us tonight, outside of Patrick Cunningham and myself, who you usually see. If you could unmute or just wave Nikki Lou, she's a designer at Perkins and Will. We have Navia Raju, who is an ecologist from Perkins and Will. We have Lizzie Dame on the call. She's a project architect at Perkins and Will. And Lynn, where are you? I see you there from Studio 2112, our landscape architect, and they
You didn't
will.
try the last name, Brooke? I'm
I
so
know. Well,
shocked.
I can do it. I can do it, but I was scared. I got stage fright, Lynn.
Understood.
All right, so tonight we are going to give you a project update, talk about our ecology research, go through the landscape and site development, and look at the level 1 plan, which I just referred to, and the massing development for the project. Before we get into that, I wanted to spend a moment letting you know what we have been up to as a design team. While you are seeing some information tonight, that's not all of what we are doing. We are having weekly internal consultant meetings. So we have many consultants, and we are meeting with them on a weekly basis to review their scope of work. We did have a mechanical meeting review with the city, and Z, thank you for your time. We're scheduling the electrical, fire protection, plumbing meeting with the city to review those systems. And these are really system reviews to get the sign off so we can move forward. And just to remind everyone, of course, we are in schematic design where we're developing the scope, systems, materials for the project so we can get an accurate price for the project funding agreement with the MSBA. We're working on physical and digital building the models and refining the buildings with those, and we'll show you some of that tonight. We're looking at the schematic design set and cartooning that set. That means coming up with all the pages that are required. We did respond to the MSBA PSR review comments. That did take some time. The ecology research you'll see tonight. We've looked at the loading dock. We participated in the CM at risk review and proposals. We have spent a lot of time on the landscape and site development. You will also see that tonight. We have looked at the site grading studies, which is really important because we're looking at the cut fill analysis for the project to understand whether we have enough soil balance site, too much. We did complete the geotechnical test pits. Z, thank you so much for your coordination and time getting that done, and we will work on preliminary assessments. Those are ongoing. We did have a traffic review meeting with Mass DOT and our traffic consultant. We're looking at next steps for that. We are conducting internal design reviews. We have been working on the floor plans, which is really important for all the consultants, which looks at adjacencies, efficiencies, the gross square footage, et cetera. The MEPFP plan coordination, massing studies. We're starting to look at the structural system review, which we've talked a little bit about right now. It's in a bit alternate format. but we need to look at that more closely. And then talking to Margaret and her team with weekly review meetings. So that's a little bit of what we've been up to, and I think it's important for you to know that you can look at that work. I wanted to just spend a moment talking about why this is important. At Perkins and Will, the firm has made a commitment to include ecologists on our project teams, and this is really unique and really great for our clients. And this is really to promote ecological thinking and thinking that goes beyond what is conventional sustainability frameworks. And the goal of this is not only to sort of minimize environmental harm, but become these stewards to the places that we inhabit. And this includes the Salem High School site. So Navia, who is in Boston, our Boston studio, an ecologist, is working with our firm-wide ecologist, Juan Ravallo, and she's going to share some of the findings and not all. We had to reduce some of this, but we wanted to go through some of this content with you tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Navia.
Hi everyone. I will now run through our ecology report. So our vision is not just positioning ecology and nature as a backdrop, but an active design partner, transforming the entire campus into a living system, one that bridges land, learning, and community, creating spaces that both restore nature and educate the next generation. Next. Understanding the place. On the right side, the diagram demonstrates that Salem High School is not just a site in isolation. It sits at the intersection of upland forests and coastal wetlands, acting as a transition zone in the watershed. What happens here at Salem High School has ripple effects, influencing both upstream forests and the downstream estuary. So this gives us an incredible opportunity to make the school as an environmental steward in not just managing stormwater and enhancing biodiversity, but building climate resiliency through nature-based solutions. Next. This is the ecoregion map. We studied the ecoregion map because it gives us a framework to coordinate strategies to protect and sustain natural resources in the same geographic area. Salem lies in the Boston Basin Level 4 ecoregion, shaped by coastal wetlands and maritime climate. This is a place of historic biodiversity with estuaries that once supported abundant life. However, urbanization has fragmented it, but schools like Salem can restore that ecological richness. Next. Next up, we have the geology map. So Salem High School sits on a glacial stratified deposit, which is a layered mix of sand, gravel, and silt that was left behind by melting glaciers during the last ice age. So these deposits not only shape the land, but also influence how water drains, how water can be stored and support wetland systems today. Recognizing this foundation allows us to design solutions with the land instead of against it. Next, we have the soils map. Salem High School sits on 3 different soil types, each shaping how water moves and what plants can thrive here. Parts of the campus lie on udorthins, which are disturbed soils that require restoration to regain ecological function. Other areas fall on urban land soils where impermeable ground leads to high stormwater runoff. And on the edges, we have the Chatfield-Hollis complex soil that is very shallow to the bedrock, limiting the growth of large canopy trees. Next. We have hydrology. So this is the hydrology diagram. Salem High School is closely tied to its surroundings, with wetlands both on the site and nearby that fall within the ecologically sensitive 100 feet buffer zone. This map also shows the FEMA flood zones. While the school itself is not located in a high-risk FEMA flood zone, there are flood-prone areas to the east and south of the site, meaning stormwater runoff from the site has direct implications for downstream flooding. This highlights the need for design solutions that can support regional flood resilience. So this map here shows the projections of the 2030, 2050, and 2070 flooding, moving closer to Salem High School. This makes climate adaptation essential. Strategies like wetland restoration, improved infiltration, and reducing impervious cover will not only buffer against flooding, but will also enhance biodiversity and water quality. In the next slide, we have the land cover. In the next slide. So land cover at Salem High School is a mix of open fields, impervious surfaces, and forest edges and wetlands, each carrying different ecological implications. So the key opportunity for us here is to reduce hard surfaces while strengthening forest edges and wetlands, which act as a natural buffer for biodiversity. So in the next slide, we have the Parks and Trails map. As we see here, a trail system already connects Salem High School to the Salem Woods Park, but there's an even greater opportunity here to extend the links to the smaller park on the northern side. Doing so would create a continuous ecological corridor, turning the school into a transition zone that strengthens both habitat connectivity and community access. In the next slide, we have a climate data chart that shows Salem receives consistent rainfall year-round with no ecological drought. The dark blue color, which peaks in February and April, again in September and November, indicates significant stormwater runoff risks. Therefore, our design has to prioritize drainage and wetland restoration to capture and slow that excess water. In the next slide, we have a wind chart across different seasons. So wind plays an important role in shaping comfort and planting strategies on the campus. In the winter, the dominant winds come from the west and northwest, so planting evergreens along these edges will act as windbreaks, shielding outdoor spaces from cold seasonal gusts. In the summer, the winds shift south and southeast, where deciduous trees can provide shade in the hot months, but allow sunlight to return in the winter once the leaves drop, creating a naturally adaptive system for comfort year-round. In the next diagram, we have the plant and tree species that most commonly found across the site's three ecological zones, which is the highlands near Salem Woods Park, the wetlands around the school, and the coastal edge. And in the next slide, we have a diagram that highlights the diversity of fauna found on and around the school's campus, from birds to mammals to amphibians, reptiles, and insects. And as part of our ecological assessment, we will carefully consider sensitive habitats and species, and we are committed to following established guidelines to ensure design strategies protect and enhance local biodiversity. And this slide it captures the 6 key takeaways that must guide our design. Geology and soils remind us to work with the land and not against it. Hydrology shows that managing runoff is critical as flood risks expand. Trails highlight the opportunity to connect Salem High School into a larger ecological corridor. Microclimate strategies like functional tree canopies can regulate comfort year-round. And finally, the flora and fauna emphasize protecting and enhancing critical habitats so the school can truly function as a living system. And in the next slide, we have a proposed interpretation of a restored wetland. Here we see how Salem High School can lead with design strategies that work with nature. Wetlands will be restored and revealed as ecological zones with boardwalks and outdoor classrooms. They will filter runoff and act as natural sponges, storing and cleaning water to build climate resiliency. Educational trails and signage will integrate ecology into everyday learning, making the site a living classroom. And by enhancing biodiversity with meadows, pollinator gardens, and bird habitats, we can transform this campus into a sanctuary that connects land, learning, and our community.
I will pause there for a moment because that was a lot. Would anyone like to ask a question? Jenna, you were fast.
Oh, thank you. This was great. I'm really excited. I hope we push as hard as we can on this. You know, to me, we have lots of athletic fields, but we have very little ecological places for people to learn. And that's a lifelong thing that everybody can do. And it's so critical. I just read something that 70% of the world's flora and fauna are reduced in numbers. We are losing them rapidly, and we really need to work to get our young people and everybody who's around the high school to get excited about their own vegetation. So I'm really excited by this, and I hope we really try to integrate as much as space as we can for this. It will be the easiest in general to maintain, and it will have impacts for everyone. And the only question I really had was just when you were talking about the soils, you talked about like some of them that is the goal with some of this to restore some of the conditions so that you can plant some of these native species? Is that what basically part of the design will be to, because a lot of it is fill or disturbed area, is to restore it to a condition that it can support the native?
Correct.
Okay.
And everyone, this will lead into a wonderful presentation from Lynn, our landscape architect. And so we wanted to set the stage and foundation for her presentation and the concepts that we are following through with the design and for the design. Does anybody have, I don't see any more hands, so shall we continue, or any other question?
Perla has her hand up.
Okay.
I would like to underscore Jenna's comments about how important it is that we push as much as possible for this, because we all know how important it is for our vulnerable students who struggle emotionally, etc., to have a space where they can connect with nature, where they can possibly have the opportunity to just kind of bring some of those emotions down. This would be a great opportunity. So it is everyone. Yes, it is for everyone, but it also really does tremendous. It's a great resource for our really vulnerable populations as well. Thank you.
Great. It's a great comment. Anybody else? Thank you. All right, we'll keep going. And I think you've seen us talk about this before, but now we're setting sort of the ecological foundation for the work, and we'll get into that now. Lynn, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brooke. I just want to say, you're my dream at school building committee to hear everything that everyone's saying here. It's so wonderful to have such support for the landscape and to really understand what the partnership with the building and the landscape can really do to transform the site. So even before we were able to engage with Navia, we really started to look at what our inspiration could be when you start to engage in natural systems, when you have something that's fluid or ductile meeting something hard. And so it always comes back to geology for us. And like when you have water, roots, soil, meeting, ledge, how do things morph and shape? And then how do they create more interesting spaces in between? And that's really what we see throughout ecology as well. When the edges are happening between two different types of ecosystems, ecotypes, that's where the richness really begins. And we see that as a wonderful opportunity of the school. We know we're calling these inclusions in the laminations on the right-hand diagram. We know we have some big things that we need to push out and around, but we can find flowing opportunities and little interstitial spaces that really are bringing program and richness into the site. So we kind of took this idea, and as we look at the next slide, we started to say, okay, how does this flow over the site? It's just a conceptual thing. We're flowing from highland to wetland. Like these are the kind of ideas that we've been looking at so far all together. And you see, kind of activity in those ribbons and those laminations start to push and pull apart where there's more program at the doors, at the main courtyard, at the back side to really start to shape our spaces, and we can start to integrate the richness of that. We have larger inclusions as we push around the big fields. Like we know that that's a required known entity, but we are pulling out those little spaces to the sides to say, how can we engage this richness here and make sure it's a wonderful place for people too. So as we go to the next slide, we also then took this concept over our site plan and wanted to step through, which I think folks are really familiar with, but it's a good back check for all of us. What is there on site? Where is it? These are our primary landscape typologies that Navia was talking about, our wetlands in blue here. Then as we kind of move up in our succession of plant material and ecologies, if we move to the next slide, the next thing that really starts to happen is meadows come in. And we have that. You see how they hug around the wetlands. And this really analysis starts to inform what we can and can't do in certain places. So the meadows then make way to our next grouping of ecologies, where we have that big, beautiful, bold ledge. It's such a wonderful space. And then we have the forest edge buffer and the riparian buffer. Those things are kind of happening again at that richness of those edges where the ecologies are meeting. And then as we come further along in our next slide, we have our more mature core forests, right? And so those are the big spaces where we get larger fauna and wonderful things really happening, and they're more of a stable environment. And as we continue, we start to see that, yeah, we're here. We got to make our way into this whole space. So in some of these numbers, the homogeneous, these are the spaces that are fields. These are known entities, and there's a lot of opportunities to blend these edges, which is really quite nice. And we have developed space because that's the world that we live in. But I think really starting to understand these, and you start to see how those colors are starting to pull through our schematic ideas. We want to start to pull that into those engaging spaces and mix with the program right within the core of the site. So if we go forward, another thing that Navia touched on, but we've really been doing in many of our MSBA projects, it's this idea of making sure that we're meeting. We have a metric to meet for biodiversity. That includes no more than 10% of any particular species, no more than 20% of any genus, no more than 30% of any family. That gives us the most supportive environment. This goes beyond just a pollinator garden, right? We're looking at everything being supportive for habitat, not only biodiversity within our plant material, but engaging within our animals as well. So that's a matrix that we have, that's when we start to get to our planting plan, that gets plugged in and we back check everything. So then as we really start to look at what are the programs on the site, how does this start to deploy? We know that this is all very familiar to this group, the idea of highland to wetland and what the educational programs are, and then maybe corresponding exterior programs. How do those fit together? So now that we've taken a closer look at the site, we can go to the next slide and say, okay, things are starting to really kind of find a home or close to a home at this point. So on the Highland side of things, as we've been working with Perkins and Will and understanding where the program is in the building, we're having this outflow space and this wonderful kind of workshop space along the Highland edge for the outdoor welding and construction lab. Maybe carpentry is out there too. The nature-based play really anchors a corner against where the daycare is, and that's a lovely space for one, like the kids can see what the older kids are doing, and I think that co-location is always a fun thing. The outdoor vehicle bay, really starting to find homes for each one of these exterior programs. And as we move in the next slide, we move kind of further from the highland to wetland. So this is getting into the courtyard space of the building and what we think is a supportive kind of co-location of programs there. We're working with the Perkins and Will team, like where is the outdoor amphitheater there? It can like coexist as a classroom. I think the foraging gardens, we're going to try to bring that plant material in as much as possible. And it can be next to the teaching kitchen garden beds that are outside the Black Cat Cafe. So you can hang out outside and then still have all of this wonderful plant material around you. The campus art walk, that can happen everywhere as we're working through our pedestrian circulation. And we know we have these big core fields. So those two things are really anchoring the center of the site. And as we move further down, we're looking at locations for that wetland lab. We have a number of rain gardens that we're working with a civil engineer on in the project, but having that wetland lab co-located with our constructed rain garden, not a constructed wetland, but have it be adjacent to an actual wetland is a wonderful place for them to like do some study and then go see what's really happening. The basketball courts that you have now, we think one of them could be a really wonderful kind of workshop space for reforesting and testing for the school to see what kind of plant materials out there, what can we start to grow, get involved with the American Chestnut Society and all these really cool things. And the solar learning station, having that located on a building floor plate and really have, hands-on learning for a lot of these programs. So if we go forward, now we start to look at, okay, what are we trying to bring in? What are our inspirations? If we're trying to bring in ledge and like more of the wildness, I think that's what we in an appropriate way. But number 3, I think to me is one of the most inspirational images here because it's redefining what a campus looks like, what a school looks like. At this time of year, things get a little wild, and that's the beauty of it. It's not this manicured thing where everyone's going to come in and cut things down. So I think, together we can all team on kind of reprogramming a lot of people's thoughts about that and engaging with this a bit more and showing the benefits of it. If we go to the next one, we're zooming in even a little bit more. This is how we start to make things real. But we wanted to just show in slightly more detail how these spaces are starting to flesh themselves out. Geometries are still kind of working their way through, but the woodland entry from that would be the bus loop that will drop off on the northeast side of the building, that we can kind of get that a little bit closer and feel more like you're moving through a woodland to get to the main entry. Any of these kind of sinuous forms that we have that we're drawing, we are envisioning those to be porous pavers that kind of, or a porous material that expands and contracts and also helps to define space and bring us up to some real beautiful native plantings. The outdoor theater, these things are starting to really find a home in the forms that we're drawing. We love the association of the outdoor seating at the Black Cat Cafe with all of these wonderful raised garden beds and the foraging. And then as we cross the vehicular drop off and we get closer to the fields, that's where things can get a little more wild and bigger moves. There's a rain garden in there, a couple of these larger forested edge buffers that have seating on the side and very clear site circulation between. So it really kind of cleans up a lot of the way things shape out here. You can go ahead. I'm not sure who's driving, but it's great. Then we have our overall site plan. So all of this is in place now. I don't think many of the major components have moved significantly since the PSR because we really worked hard in PSR to get those things to find a good home. In the main core of the athletics piece, I don't know if we have the enlargement of athletics, but I think one thing we did want to bring up to this group is that we have two. Okay. Do you want to go to that? Okay. We can I'll go through this first. Thanks, Brooke.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot of little numbers on here, but the areas that are blue in our new design are really meant to be rain gardens, maybe not hold water, but rain gardens to actually, do some absorption. We will be working really hard to have we need to always think about ADA compliance and safety and universal access. We're actually able to grade the whole site so that you can move universally accessibly without any ramps around the site right now. And that's a real win for all of us. But as much porosity as we can get in any of the hardscape materials, that's something we'll be looking at in appropriate places, because we also know we're all in this northern climate and we want things to be safe and easily maintainable for the group too, as far as hardscape surfaces go. I think I could step through this, but we can always come back if people have questions as to where things have kind of landed, but they haven't really moved too much since the PSR.
I think that's true. So and this hasn't changed that much, but maybe just remind people of
Sure. And we've also, the vehicular access, you see the entry that's closest to the intersection, that is our bus drop off. So bus, Horace Mann, daycare entry. Those folks will be coming in there, and everybody is basically leaving at the southern exit. That's really we've been working with the our traffic engineer on that. When parents come in to drop off, they will come in the southern exit. They drop off at the front of the school in a one-way location loop at the front of the school, and then exit the same way they came in. During the day, those two black lines you see there, those are gates that will be closed, so that during the school day, you have free access from the new building all the way through this beautiful landscape down to athletics, and punctuated where the basketball courts are and the two rain gardens. That was really important to all of us. But at the same time, CTE access is maintained as you come in that southern loop, and you can kind of hug the southern side of the existing roadway actually to get you back to CTE, get you back to the Black Cat Cafe and automotive. So all of those things still maintain that, and closing off the front of the school does not impede the rest of the circulation that will happen during the day. The one punch through at Highland is something that emergency access, we're kind of in conversations on that. It seems to be going well so far. Meant to only come in that way. And then folks, then they'll have to exit throughout. But as far as access to all of the interesting, critical components here, emergency has wonderful access to everything on the site.
One thing to note is that at our facilities assessment committee meeting at post PSR with the MSBA, one of the requests was to make sure that there was enough plaza space and breathing room at that bus entry, so that we felt like it's generous enough to kind of take with grace the amount of kids who are kind of getting off and being dropped off there. So you see there that we pulled the parking away from the building more and kind of eased the edge of the drop off, and that's where Lynn and team have introduced a bit more landscape, so that the landscape on that large rock outcrop area can feel like it extends along the building edge, and makes that a much nicer place to drop off. It also provides a bit more continuity as we continue conversation about how we create a continuous trail access through the site and down to the forest preserve. So we're providing a bit more planting there, so that as you come off Highland Avenue, it's a little bit of nicer kind of entry to site.
And that also has the experience as you move around the site. There's locations where as a pedestrian you're in a tighter spot, and then it kind of opens up to a vista and it's a little bit tighter within the planting. So I think there's a lot of dynamics that we're able to start really teasing out of the design as we're working through.
Lynn, there was a question about bus parking, and I know that's an ongoing discussion right now. It's on the site. So what I understand is it's on the site, but if it's not on the site and we're making no judgment, that's really a city call, and there's been no determination of that. But if it was not on the site, either you'd get more parking or you'd have more open space. Is that correct?
Well, the park, yes, down where the solar panels are down by the tennis courts, that's currently the bus parking, and those, the civil engineer has been working through that transition to make that an actual vehicular parking lot, to keep the numbers the same. That's the big key. We've always kept the numbers the same on the site. So if that maintained its, current use as bus parking, that would drop the numbers of cars parking on the site. So I think we all know that it's a tight site, but the way we can achieve the same number of parking spaces now as the civil engineer has reworked that piece to make it vehicular parking instead of bus parking.
Okay.
Can I ask, Jenna, before you ask your question, I have a question, and it's probably not for you to answer, Lynn. I apologize. I'm looking at this site plan, and I'm looking at the parking lot and its proximity to Wilson Street, and just curious, how close is the parking lot to Wilson Street? And I ask from the standpoint of, could there possibly be backup on Wilson Street? And again, Lynn, I apologize. It's probably not a question for you, but I'm just looking at this diagram and thinking it looks awfully close.
I can't exactly answer. It hasn't changed
Okay.
so it is the same in these
Oh, okay.
drawings as it is now. That one,
Okay.
but so I can answer it, Mr.
You
Chair.
did. You did.
Yeah, great. So that one doesn't change, but the big change to not get things to back up on Wilson Street is the full separation of
Right.
most people are required to come in that southern entrance.
Perfect.
But Nate, you're pushing all of everything outside of the bus, Forest Man, and daycare. Everything is going
Right.
to South Wilson. So the hope is
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. I
reduce
just, again, I'm
backup.
just looking at it. So no, I think it's great. Thanks, Brooke. Jenna and then the mayor.
I just wanted to, and this is a comment, and I'm sure you're addressing it, is just to, how you're thinking of nighttime and ecology, particularly with the athletic fields, which tend to have very bright lights, which will not be good for the wildlife.
Yeah.
And then, and just thinking about that, and then also from a nighttime education, how, there might be opportunities for as much as little as you can see, stargazing in Salem. But just nighttime watching for bats or.
Let me just answer the athletic lighting.
Yeah.
We understand what you're saying, and it will be up to the city based on what we explain to them, whether or not there's athletic lighting. So we can put the pros and cons out there and the impact on the wildlife and the ecology, but we will not be making the decision on behalf of the city. How's that for political correctness? And then you asked about the nighttime program. Someone else want to take that?
I'll just, one more comment, and you don't have to answer those, just,
okay.
I'd be interested to see how your landscaping is going to turn out on the, the highest rock there, that they currently have a pathway from the parking lot over to the high school, because that's a really interesting space. So
It is.
You got engaged more.
I can speak to that a bit now. I mean, some of that is, it's so beautiful now. That path is never going to be accessible. We've had internal kind of, what should we do? Because it is but it's a lovely moment. The idea there is less is more from touching it. We don't need to. It's not part of the integral part of the program. So if we can leave it be, that is probably the best thing for the ecology. If there's some invasives that we can take care of, that's sort of an ongoing conversation. But I think that one really wants to have the lightest touch, because some of these areas are quite established, and being on that ledge and having such thin soils, the less we do there is probably the better.
And I would say we would work with you all on nighttime programs, and who would be there, how would they access, do they need to get into the building, are they just, how does it relate to the educational programs? I think that's an ongoing discussion. But that's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up.
Mayor?
Thanks. Lynn, are you also who is doing the design on the amphitheater space on the exterior at the front of the building? Is that landscape architect, or is that theater consultant?
It wouldn't be a theater consultant. We're working with Perkins and Will on it. We're trying to resolve some edges of the bar of the building. So it's a real team effort there. But as far as if it's exterior, I would assume it's in our scope for that, not a theater consultant, but I'll kick to Perkins and Will, because there's not that much you can control out there.
Mayor, what are you worried about? Sound, visibility, capacity, all those things that we would, probably get from the city.
It seems like a very small space, and there's a lot of program that on the last, or on one of the images where you showed kind of all the different elements of the front of the building.
It's a little pinched.
Happening there, and I don't know how effective as a performance venue it'll be if it also has outdoor dining and the cafe seating and the raised beds, and how it's going to be configured for seating for viewing a performance or engaging in the arts there.
I think in our mind, it's much more of an informal space. So, we're thinking about whether it's a kind of informal, small scale tiered landscape that can have multiple functions. So it might be a place to gather for a classroom. It might be a place where you can sit and perch if you're outside eating. It could also be used for the band to put on a kind of concert in that space, where there's a bit of tiered seating to kind of help with sight lines. So I think in our minds, it's not a kind of singular enclosed amphitheater. It's something that's more informal.
Thanks.
And as we develop these spaces, we'll share with you. And if some of them fall out, which I don't think that will, because there's enough flexible opportunities for use. We'll see how that works out with respect to space. Lynn, I want you to just lean into this, and I want to just preface this by saying that this will be not the last conversation, but a conversation really for the record right now where we stand with the athletic programs. And we wanted to formally go over this with you. And honestly, I think a lot of it's similar, but we'll let Lynn take you through what is MIAA compliant and what is just practice, and just everybody can make a note of this as we move forward with the site plan.
Great. Thanks, Brooke. I think the biggest thing that we want to make sure is very clear to everybody as we took all of these pieces and we smashed them all together to see what would fit. The athletics core, the fields, they're drawn as soccer fields. They are MIAA compliant. They can be used for competition fields. The softball and the baseball overlay are practice only. They are not compliant because it's backstop on the baseball. I think it wants to be a 60-foot. We can only fit a 40-foot offset for the backstop. That doesn't meet their requirements. And the outfield is smaller than is required for competition in this location because we just can't fit it. Softball, it's more about the overlay. I think there's less issues with softball not being compliant, but I think it's that overlay situation with baseball because the outfields do overlap, and I think a little bit of an infield does too. So I think that in the core, we have 2 fields that can be used for soccer and lacrosse, but it's when we overlap those other 2, those would only be successful as practice fields. At the lower field, your existing lower field.
Rosalind, for
Sure.
1 second, if you don't mind, I just want to say that everybody, I think, has heard that when you have the overlay of these fields, it requires having synthetic turf in those synthetic fields. They're not grass fields. When you have the softball, baseball, and the 2 fields, is everybody seeing my pointer?
So can I make a comment, Brooke, here?
Yes, please.
And I probably should have mentioned this a while back. My only concern about softball and baseball in particular is I know baseball, I used to work at Salem State, and they were always looking for a field to play on. And so we would work with them and they would use our fields for some of their games. Where we have Bertram for soccer, so they don't necessarily need a compliant practice field. I would argue that softball and baseball would need an MIAA compliant field. Now, it may be too late in the process, but I just recall baseball in particular, but I'm sure softball struggling to find a field for MIAA competition. And I thought this was going to resolve it.
I think the challenge, Nate, is that it's not really an either or. You can see the space we have between the road, the ledge, and the existing field isn't going to support that outfield and backstop dimension, regardless of whether or not soccer is there.
Okay. All right.
And this also means, and we're just saying it out loud so everybody has it in their head, that there will be fencing, safety netting, and fencing required, and at a much greater height for the baseball and softball than just sort of soccer and lacrosse. And we will show you that as we go, but everybody needs to know as you approach the site that in this direction, you will see that safety netting. And it's just a fact of life if we're having that. Neil, you have a question?
Do those fields also, I'm assuming you have like some sort of, well, for the baseball, like a modular mound or something that has to be placed and then stored somewhere.
And that's right, Neil. That's part of why it's not a competition, because you do have to have this movable thing. There's a few different ways you can slice it when you are overlaying that way, but it's not ideal for a competition.
Got it. Jenna?
I heard you say that you would have to go artificial if you do both. And I thought early on in this process, people were pretty definitive. They did not want artificial turf here. And I know it's a lot more expensive also. So I just wanted to clarify if that's the case. If we do both, we have to have artificial.
I think with the hours of usage and the overlay of activities, it has to be artificial.
So that's something to consider, is that there was a strong feeling in a lot of the community stuff, and it's really expensive.
And Jenna, it's easier for us to take something away than figure out how to add it. So right now, we're showing you what it looks like. If the committee wants to engage in a conversation around whether or not baseball and softball is included and because that means synthetic, that's entirely an understandable discussion. You do not have to have, Lynn, this won't affect us right now if we don't know that, right? I think
that's correct. We
can put that, yeah.
I think, but everybody raises a good point here. For knowing our end goal is really solid pricing for schematic design, having this as turf with the overlay gives us a higher number, right? It will be higher. If we did not overlay softball and baseball, the field could go to natural turf.
Okay, we need to table that because I just realized we are way over schedule. So why don't you mention the lower fields and then
Sure. That's where we move. So your existing lower field and that dimension allows us to move the 5 tennis courts there, which supports competition play. And we still have a field that works down in that location. So that is really a wonderful use of the space that you currently have to reprogram it and still make that effective from a standpoint of athletics.
Excellent, thank you. We know there will be more conversations. Let's try to get through this last piece of the presentation and then Margaret will turn it back over to you. So Nikki, please.
Let's jump right in. So the design takes its cues from the site's glacial history. As Navia mentioned earlier, when the ice retreated, it left behind these long directional drumlins. They shaped the flow of water and the topography we see today. Our building steps with that landscape, moving in synergy with the land and following its natural grain. Our building steps with that landscape. So the bar-like forms rise like the drumlins themselves, grounding the building in place, anchoring classrooms in the landscape, and connecting learning directly to nature. This way, this enduring form of the land keeps the building grounded, while the spaces in between open up to the dynamic rhythms of culture and community. In the next slide, you'll see a central circulation spine that connects the 3 academic bars. Between these bars are these larger shared spaces highlighted in yellow. These include the gym, the cafeteria, auditorium, and a flexible chair wrestling space. Each of these spaces open outwards to the site, bringing in natural light, capturing views, and reinforcing the connection between learning and the surrounding landscape. Here you see the CTE spaces, which are highlighted in blue. We've intentionally spread these at the ends of the bars throughout the building so that the learning is made visible, it sparks curiosity, and it naturally encourages collaboration across the school.
Really quick. Oh,
go ahead.
Go on. I was just going to give a really quick recap. We've been having many conversations with the administration and the working group, and we're really excited about how the plan has evolved. And just a couple of really quick changes. The kitchen was moved to the front of the building in this center bar, and that allows for direct access to servery without crossing over the central spline to get to it, which would cause a lot of congestion. We put all the back of house together, and we are very happy with that. And we know Z's smiling if he's still here, which I'm sure he is. So the main mechanical room and some of the storage and loading is in this gray zone here. We also moved welding to this central bar, which allows welding to have direct access to one of those exterior maker spaces, which also makes learning visible from Highland Avenue, which is another great attribute of putting welding in this space. Auto Marine was asked at one point, could it fit on the end? And yes, it can. You come into Auto Marine the entry here and out the exit, and we'll be laying that out. The daycare, we shifted to the north side of this bar here, the entry bar, and that allows for direct access to play and a nice daycare entry that doesn't conflict with the high school entry. The early childhood classroom was moved down from the upper floor so it can have a direct correlation and direct synergy with daycare, because these are obviously the students that are learning from the daycare. Lots of discussion about Stride and Bridge. It was determined that Stride would move upstairs, so it would be integrated with the general classrooms, and Bridge, which is for the older students, the 18 to 22-year-olds, would be on this first level. They would not have any access to the early childhood or daycare. Those would be separate components, and we'll figure out how to make that separation, careful separation. Those are the major changes. Everything else, I think, is where we had it before, but we wanted to make note of those changes.
In this area of view, you can see how the massing is conceived as a building within the landscape. The two outer bars express as stacked volumes, which help to break down the scale and soften the presence of a larger building. The lighter beige tone of the facades is starting to create this canvas that highlights the natural beauty of the site through the shadow play and color. This also could help to create graceful continuity from the outside moving inside, bringing daylight and enhancing a biophilic palette. At the same time, the light tone complements the school's branding colors, tying the design back to its identity. In the next view, you will see this is how you would experience when driving up that drop-off loop Lynn was mentioning. It's adjacent to the playing fields. As you move along the roads, the building gradually reveal itself with the stepping volumes and tree canopies, creating this inviting gesture that draws you towards the main entry. As you get closer, the sweeping lines of the landscape, the canopy is continuing to guide you into the building. The upper levels of the bars step back, echoing the site's natural topography. The design team is really excited to continue to explore the building's facade and its overall proportions. Here you can see how the different layers of the surrounding landscape is beginning to interact with the building. At the same time, we are carefully refining the exterior glazing, targeting at 25% to balance daylight views and energy performance. And finally, this is a sneak peek at our physical model in progress. We're using these models to test and explore our massing ideas in 3 dimensions, seeing how the building sits within the landscape, how the form relate to each other, and how the scale and proportion feel in real space. So we'd love to share more of this progress at the next meeting with you.
So that concludes our presentation for tonight, and thank you for giving us the time to present this. There's a lot of material, and if we don't get to all your questions and you have further questions after the presentation, please email them to Margaret, and we will be happy to respond. You all have this presentation in the link that was sent to you.
Thanks, Brooke.
From that to this.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Paul and Deborah.
Hey, just a quick update on CM at risk selection process, and I'll just do some logistics and Paul can add any comments he would like to. So
Can we see the next slide? There we go. Cue card.
Cue card, thanks. So we received, as you can see on here, 5 submissions from CM or CM teams, and for the qualifications portion of this, and the CM selection committee, including Paul, Lisa, Matt, Anthony, Brooke, and myself, with the support of Margaret and Joe in our office, did the review and then basically shortlisted the firms that will move on to the next round, which is the request for proposal process. The 4 firms moved on. The 1 firm that did not, the combination of Bond and H.J. Russell, did not move on. They were not shortlisted. And it was just a joint venture that was a little quirky, and the rest of them were kind of the rest of the firms are kind of on par and meeting the qualifications, which is kind of the bar of that first round, that we know that they will move on. It's more, as Margaret says, it's a little bit of a marketing exercise for them to prove to us that they're up to the task. And so we issued the request for proposal to the 4 firms: Gilbane, Shawmut Rich Partners, which is a combination of 2 firms, local firms, Skanska and Suffolk Construction. They've had the RFP request for proposal for a couple of weeks. We have had some questions from them and are issuing an addendum tomorrow responding to some of these questions, and their final questions are due on Monday. If there are any additional questions, we'll issue a last addendum to the group. The proposals are due on the 3rd, and on the week of September 15th, they're actually scheduled for the 16th and the 17th, 2 nights. The interviews are scheduled the week prior to that. We have a meeting the CM selection committee has a meeting to review the proposals that are received and score them in advance of going into the interviews on the 16th and 17th. And I'm sorry, but I missed the conversation a little bit about, are we still doing September's meeting on the 18th? Or are we doing it on the 17th? Did that change?
We're going to do it. We're going to do it on the 25th.
25th.
The next
Good.
building committee meeting will be the 25th.
Sorry, that's good, because I thought I heard something further. So the interviews will be in advance of that meeting on the 25th, and we can report then on the next on the selection. And so the whole goal of this schedule is to get the CM firm on board for a healthy portion of the schematic design process, and to be on board for schematic design estimating. It's very important that if we're going to do the CM process, as we're doing, that they be part of the MSBA submission, so that they can have some skin in the game in terms of the scope and the budget that are submitted with the schematic design submission. Paul, do you want to add anything?
No, the only thing I'd add is that we're meeting, the subcommittee's meeting on August 26th to review some topics to be addressed by the CMs at the interview, and also prepare some questions to be asked of each one of the candidates. The same question will be asked by the committee members to each of the finalists at the interview, so that we are being fair in terms of asking the same question for each. Brooke has sort of sent over a template of many questions. We'll be taking that and refining them and looking at them, but we'll send those out as soon as we're done, and that give them plenty of time to be able to prepare for their interview. Again, we're slated for the 16th and the 17th of September, if all goes well. There'll be in-person interviews in the annex on those 2 dates. All are invited.
Questions for Deborah or Paul? Good. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Deborah. Anthony?
The finance, excuse me, the finance working group met yesterday to approve 2 invoices for July. One for Answer Advisory for $23,011.25. One for Perkins and Will for $85,404.80. Both were approved for a total of $108,416.05. The working group also talked about the expected contracting timeline for the CM and some other issues around that. That was all.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to future meetings, just Rick, do you have anything?
I'm all set, Nate. Just
Okay.
thank you to the design team. Great update. I had seen most of that, of course, in the working group, but as a designer, I know you don't get to hear great update very often. So great update. Thank you.
Okay. Before we go to future meetings, let's do public comments. I don't know if we have anyone who is available for public comment. If you are, we're going to limit comments to no more than 3 minutes, and we're asked that you state your name and your address.
I see 4 people in the attendee list and nobody has their hand up.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we can go ahead and look at the future meeting dates. So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
just to recap, that I talked about this at the beginning, but I thought it might be easier to see them lined out. Lisa will be updating invites later this week, hopefully, and then I think this plan is likely to pretty much stay in place. I think we can kind of see the path to completion now.
Okay. Any other last minute questions, comments? I know we packed a lot into this meeting, but we're moving forward. Ryan, yes. Rylan, sorry.
It's fun. I just wanted to thank Perkins and Will for inviting me to do the tour. That was a really cool experience.
Thank you for coming and thanks for helping with the model, Rob.
Yeah, Rylan helped us with our physical model, so thank you for for helping out.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we're hearing no interest in comments or questions. Again, this is a really jam-packed meeting, some really good information. We are really on our way. So thanks to Perkins and Will, thanks to Accenture, thanks to all involved, the committee. Lots of good questions. So I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any extensions? Motion carries. Have a lovely Thursday evening, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Ryan.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Bye.